The moment Aisha realized she was disappearing from Hamza's memory, it felt like her soul had cracked open quietly, painfully, without anyone noticing but her. She stood alone on the balcony of her small apartment, overlooking the city lights that flickered like dying stars, the night breeze brushing against her skin with a coldness she had grown used to. In her hand, she held a fading photograph. They were smiling in it, drenched in rain, eyes full of a love they once believed could survive anything. Now, she wasn't sure if he remembered the moment at all. Maybe memories don't fade, maybe people do. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and love that deserves to be remembered, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Aisha pressed the photo to her chest and let her eyes close for a moment. She didn't blame him, not anymore. Life had pulled them into different storms, different scars, different versions of themselves. What hurt wasn't that he left. What hurt was how easily time erased her place in his heart. He no longer messaged, no longer asked how she was, no longer looked at her the way he once used to, as if she was the only story he ever wanted to read. Yet she remembered everything, every promise, every silent goodbye disguised as silence, every soft "I'll be there," followed by his absence. Their love had begun in a moment so simple it almost felt accidental. They were strangers, sharing an umbrella during a heavy downpour outside a university library. Hamza offered the umbrella without hesitation, and she accepted with an awkward smile. He was warm, shy, gentle, someone whose kindness carried a sincerity she struggled to find in the world. What followed were days filled with laughter, late-night talks, shared secrets, and the kind of tenderness that made even the smallest moments feel extraordinary. They used to sit on a hill outside the city, watching the sunset paint golden streaks across the sky. Aisha always leaned against him, and Hamza would wrap his arms around her as if trying to shield her from everything painful. She believed those arms would always be her home, but homes can fall apart, and sometimes they fall apart quietly. Hamza became distant for reasons she didn't understand. His messages turned shorter, his calls less frequent, his voice colder. Aisha tried to hold on, believing love could fix the cracks. She asked if something was wrong. He said no. She asked if he was tired. He said he was fine. She asked if they were okay. His silence was the answer she feared. Eventually he left, not dramatically, not painfully, just quietly, like someone stepping out of a room and forgetting to close the door. There was no final fight, no closure, no explanation. His absence simply became the space she had to learn to breathe in. Tonight marked a year since she last saw him, a year since her heart began teaching itself how to beat without expecting him to return. But healing isn't a straight line. Some days she felt strong. Other days she felt like a shadow of a woman who once believed in forever. And then, just as she convinced herself she was finally moving on, she received a message from an old friend. Hamza was coming back to the city. Not for her, never for her, but for work, for life, for everything that didn't include her anymore. The thought of crossing paths with him again terrified her, not because she still loved him, but because she feared he wouldn't even recognize the heartbreak he left behind. Aisha spent days debating whether to see him or let things remain buried. Closure was something she used to crave, but now it felt unnecessary. What she needed wasn't answers, it was peace. And yet, her heart wanted something else entirely, the chance to say the words she never dared to voice. Before you forget me completely, at least remember that I loved you. So she decided to write it down. A letter, not to win him back, not to hurt him, but to set herself free. On a quiet evening, she sat at her wooden desk, lit a small lamp, and began writing with trembling hands. Every sentence felt like reopening a wound, yet she kept going. She wrote about how he made her feel seen. She wrote about the night they sat by the lake, talking about dreams that felt so close yet so fragile. She wrote about how she missed him, not the man he became, but the boy who held her hand with trembling fingers on their first date. She wrote about pain, forgiveness, longing, and gratitude. And at the end, she wrote the line that would become the heartbeat of her healing: "This is not a goodbye. This is me learning to live without waiting." When she finished, her tears had dried on her cheeks, leaving faint, salty lines. She folded the paper carefully, placed it in an envelope, and wrote his name on the front with a steadiness she didn't expect. She didn't know if she would ever actually give it to him. Maybe the letter wasn't meant for him at all. Maybe it was meant for the part of herself that finally needed to let go. The next morning, she walked to the old bridge near the city square, a place that once held echoes of their laughter. The river beneath flowed with a soft murmur, carrying memories she wished she could release with the same ease. She stood at the railing, gripping the envelope tightly. Her heart felt heavy, but her spirit felt strangely light. She considered tossing the envelope into the river, letting the water swallow every pain she had carried for too long. But something stopped her. A voice inside whispered that some stories deserve to find their way home, even if they arrive late. Just then, she heard someone calling her name. "Asher?" She froze, her breath caught in her throat. She turned slowly, and there he was, Hamza, standing a few feet away, looking at her with a mixture of surprise and something unreadable in his eyes. He looked older, more tired, a little more broken than she remembered. For a moment, the world felt suspended between past and present. Hamza walked closer, but she stepped back instinctively, not out of fear but out of self-protection. He noticed the envelope in her hand and swallowed hard. The silence between them thickened with unspoken questions. He looked at her as if trying to remember something important, something he lost without realizing it, and she understood painfully that she was the memory he was struggling to hold onto. Asher offered him a small, almost invisible smile. She didn't want explanations. She didn't need them. She simply placed the envelope on the railing beside her. "You don't have to read it," she whispered softly in her heart, though her lips never moved. "But I hope one day you'll understand what it took for me to write it." She turned and walked away, not looking back. That was the moment her healing truly began, not when she wrote the letter, but when she chose herself over the desire to be remembered. Hamza remained standing there long after she disappeared from sight. Something inside him twisted painfully. He picked up the envelope with trembling hands, pressing it to his chest. He didn't open it, not yet. He wasn't ready to face the truth he had avoided for too long. But as he stood on that old bridge, memories flooded him, memories of her laughter, her warmth, her quiet strength. He remembered how she used to tuck her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. He remembered how she always held the umbrella slightly to his side so he wouldn't get wet. He remembered how she loved fully, generously, without expecting anything in return. He realized then that he never forgot her at all. He had only forgotten how to love himself. And in that forgetting she became the casualty. He closed his eyes and whispered her name once, softly, letting it drift into the wind. For the first time in a long while, he felt tears welling up, not because she left, but because he finally understood what he lost. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please like the video, leave a comment, share it, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Your support truly means everything. Before this ends, please comment and never forget the ones who loved you silently. Asher walked through the crowded street with a soft smile on her face, not because everything was healed, but because she finally felt whole again. She no longer needed someone to remember her to feel alive. She no longer needed a past to justify her future. That night, she stood on her balcony once more, watching the city lights shimmer beneath a quiet sky. She breathed deeply, peacefully. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if Hamza would read the letter, or if it would change anything at all. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty: some goodbyes aren't endings, they are rebirths. And sometimes, love isn't meant to return. Sometimes, it's meant to set you free. And so, she whispered into the night, not with sadness, but with a strength she had earned through every heartbreak. Before you forget me completely, remember that I survived.